There comes a point in many gardens where lawn stops making sense. This is one of those places. It's patchy, it needs constant maintenance, it uses a lot of water, and it gives very little back. In a bush setting like this, it always feels like it's fighting the conditions. The plan is simple. Turn it into something productive and more aesthetically pleasing, with structured beds, brick paths, and eventually a small greenhouse. The first question when you strip turf here is what's underneath. Often it's shale. This time, surprisingly, it's decent soil. Dark, with some structure, worth keeping. By marking out the different sections, the layout can be adjusted before any real work begins. This rectangle will be leveled and paved. It will form the base for the greenhouse. A brick path will wind through the center and define the beds on either side. And a brick border will run along both edges to tie it back to the rest of the garden I built last year. We're working on a slope, so the greenhouse base needs to be level. The lower side gets built up, so the structure doesn't sit on a lean. The path and beds will follow the natural fall, which leaves the garden with two subtle planes. The string lines mark the finished heights for the paving. They keep everything consistent, so the path stays flat and even as it moves through the space. Getting these right now matters. Once they're set, I'll know exactly how much needs to be cut out and where material needs to be built up before the digging begins. The paving build-up is 80 mil of crushed rock, 30 of mortar, and about 70 for the brick. So I need to dig down roughly 180 mil below the string lines for it all to fit. Crushed rock goes in first. It forms the structural layer beneath the paving, and most of the strength in a job like this comes from what sits underneath, not what you see on top. The strings mark the finished height of the paving. The crushed rock sits 100 mil below them to allow for the mortar and the brick. That depth needs to stay consistent across the whole area. It's spread evenly, worked into the edges, and checked against the lines as it goes. This stage doesn't look like much, but it decides how the paving will behave long term. The narrow sections under the border get compacted by hand first. The plate won't fit in there, so the tamper makes sure those edges are just as solid as the rest. The wider sections can be compacted with the plate. It does a far more consistent job than a hand tamper on areas this size. The vibration pulls the crushed rock together and drives out the air pockets. This is what really locks the base in. The greenhouse base sits higher than the path and beds below. The lower edge needs to be retained. By measuring down from the finished height, allowance is made for a row of bricks to support that built-up section. It's pushing 38 degrees today, which is not ideal for this sort of work. Once this is compacted, it becomes a dense, stable platform. It also allows moisture beneath the paving to drain away rather than sitting in the soil. These are reclaimed bricks, close to 100 years old. They'll be the main feature in this part of the garden, forming the paths and the borders and tying back to the work done here last year. There's weight to them. Dense, hard-fired, worn from a previous life. Moving them by hand takes time, but they bring a character that new materials just don't have. It's a cracking morning here in Auburn. Good light, cool air, much better than yesterday. The bricks will be set on mortar, giving the path, greenhouse base, and edging a solid, permanent finish. I'm laying this in a running bond pattern, with a border around the edge to match the brick edging used throughout the rest of the garden. This is the part of the job where you're close to the brick. It's a good time to think about what you're actually working with. Almost every reclaimed brick carries a stamp, and that stamp can tell you a lot. These ones read Auburn. The Auburn brickworks operated in Hawthorne from 1909 through to the middle of the 20th century. The yards sat along Gardiner's Creek, where clay lay close to the surface. That clay built much of Melbourne's inner east. When you walk past the terraces in Richmond or the shop rows along Auburn Road, you're often looking at the same material, fired hard and built to last. These bricks were shaped from clay dug out of the ground and fired in kilns in Hawthorne, then laid into houses and factories that stood for decades. Most of the buildings these bricks went into are still standing. These ones came out of a building that was demolished more recently. Rather than being sent to landfill, the mortar was knocked off and the bricks were stacked, moved, and sold again. When the clay ran out, the pit was filled in and eventually became John Gardiner Reserve. If you've walked through that reserve and noticed the ground feels uneven in places, that's why. Most people have no idea they're walking on a former quarry that provided the clay used to build the houses they now live in. So each of these bricks has already had a life in the city. Now they're being laid into a garden in Eltham. The border runs down one side, starting to define the garden beds. What was only string and measurements is now brick and mortar. The curve is set with a simple garden hose. It's flexible, easy to move, and nothing is fixed at this stage. You can step back and adjust it until the line feels balanced in the space. Once the bricks go down, that shape is permanent. A curve adds interest. It softens the area and creates a sense of flow. It makes the garden feel less formal, nor relaxed, almost cottage-like. A space you can move through slowly. A small haven, away from the noise of everything else. They're not perfect. Edges are chipped, faces are worn, but that wear is honest. It shows time, use, and character. You can see where mortar once sat and where edges have been knocked. New materials try to imitate this, but it's not something you can manufacture. It only comes from having already done the work once before. There's something grounding about that. The material has already proven itself. It doesn't need to look pristine to feel solid. Brick is a simple material, but it carries memory with it. It's not about sentimentality. It's about keeping good material in use. Another chapter in a different setting. Instead of a straight line, this border gets a gentle curve. It breaks up the rigidity and makes the edge feel less harsh. Today I get to do my favourite and least favourite parts of paving, the cuts and the grouting. Cuts demand attention. Each one must fit precisely, or the line of the path will look off. The work is steady and deliberate. There is a quiet satisfaction in seeing a tricky angle come together exactly as it should. Any broken bricks get set aside for the cuts. There's no point cutting into a full clean brick when these pieces already need trimming. It keeps wastage down and makes better use of what's in the pile. The whole bricks stay whole. The broken ones own their place. cuts demand attention. Grouting demands endurance. One is precise and satisfying. The other is slow and methodical. But without this part, all the careful setting before it doesn't last. The grout mix is similar to the mortar, just slightly stronger. Mortar here is 4 parts sand to 1 part cement. For grout, it's 3 to 1. It's also mixed wetter. That helps it flow down into the joints, but the extra water weakens it slightly, which is why the cement content is increased. The key is making sure the mix reaches the bottom of the gap. It's easy for it to bridge near the top and leave a void underneath. I use a small 6mm mortar smoothing tool to push it all the way down and make sure the joint is fully packed. Once the joints are filled properly, the sponging begins. The cleaner you get the bricks now, the less chance there is of needing an acid wash later. Different sponges behave differently. Some drag more, some lift more. I usually rotate between a few until the surface is clean without pulling the joint back out. Even the sand makes a difference. Brick sand varies from yard to yard. Some sponge off easily, others are much more stubborn. I'm careful about which yard I use for grouting sand. A batch that doesn't sponge cleanly can turn a straightforward day into a really long one. The colour will lighten considerably as it dries, so what you see today isn't the final result. The existing soil had structure and some life in it, but vegetables are demanding. Adding fresh soil as well as compost is about depth and nutrients. Compost improves fertility, but it isn't a complete growing medium on its own. You're building a root zone that can actually support crops, not just keep them alive. A deeper, looser soil profile allows roots to move freely, access moisture, and establish properly. It's not just about feeding the plant, it's about building the right conditions from the start. Fresh soil for depth, compost for structure, manure for steady nutrients. Improving the soil now sets the garden up properly. Everything that follows depends on it. A greenhouse isn't just another structure. It's a way to control the environment. Warmth, light, humidity, in a way the open garden never can. In Victoria, weather shifts quickly. Cold snaps can stall growth outdoors. Inside, air and soil warm earlier and stay warmer for longer, which means seedlings can be started weeks ahead of the season and crops can run later into the cooler months. The enclosure also protects plants from wind, heavy rain, insects and birds. That same warmth needs managing though. Ventilation is essential to keep air moving and prevent mold. Water use becomes more efficient too. With less evaporation, moisture stays consistent, which is especially important for young plants and heat-loving crops. Sitting on the brick base we prepared, the structure is stable and permanent. It turns what was once unproductive lawn into a working space. It isn't decoration. It's a tool, a way to get more from the land already here. Mulch goes on last. It slows evaporation, keeps weeds down, and protects the soil biology underneath. It also buffers temperature, keeping the soil cooler through heat and reducing sharp fluctuations after rain. As it breaks down, it feeds the soil gradually and improves structure over time. Bare soil degrades quickly. Covered soil improves. Paths guide movement. Beds give the space purpose. The greenhouse extends the season. Each element has a job, and together they make the garden work. What was once lawn is now productive ground. The structure is permanent, but the planting will change year to year. That's how a working garden should be. The bricks have already had one life in the city. Now they set the bones for something that will evolve slowly around them. It's not dramatic, it's deliberate, and it will be used.